Hello, everybody. Today I'm continuing with Vedic astrology tutorials, and I'm talking about analyzing Rahu Ketu. This is part of the workshop I did at a conference at Arsha Jyotish, their 27th conference. It was online, and so I'm sharing my recording with you. It is quite detailed and analyzing different aspects of Rahu Ketu. It's quite a detailed analysis of Rahu Ketu through houses, nakshatras, their varga positions, Kal Sarpa yoga, and many different charts I'm discussing. And I think you'll find it very useful. Do leave some comments if, about this as well. Great pleasure to talk about Rahu Ketu. This is my very favorite topic. I've talked a lot of times, and I'm very honored to be part of the Arsha Vidya's 27 Jyotish Kumbh Mela 2021 and talking about analyzing Rahu Ketu. And, I was fortunate to be invited to the 25th Arsha Vidya at the ashram. And, and then I've been doing online and hopefully soon back to the ashram. And so this photograph that I have, this is of Rahu Ketu outside a temple in Kerala called Mannarsala. And that is where people go. It's one of the main temples people go for Rahu Ketu remedies. And this is another temple. This is Nagarkoil. And you can see all the people come and offer milk and turmeric to the snake. This is not really Rahu Ketu temple. It's a temple for Nagaraja, the king of the snakes, in a place called Nagapatnam, the city of, Nagarkoil, the city of snakes. So it's a very beautiful temple here. And so they offered us, we went there a number of times, and you can see they offered me this garland. And I've shared my presentation with Meenakshi. So this is just for you. Please don't share it with other people. And I'm going to do my own mantras I like to do. But again, a lot of the pictures here, they are taken by me. This is also at the same Nagarkoil temple, Nagaraja temple. And again, Lord Ganesha is there. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirviknam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahman Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Adityaya Somaya Mangalaya Budaya Cha Guru Shukra Shani Bhyascha Rahuve Ketave Namaha. Om Nilanjana Samabhasam Ravi Putram Yamagrajam Chayamaratanda Sambhutam Tam Namami Shanischaram. So I just wanted to show you this picture. This is Sage Parashar, and this is at the temple in Madurai, Tirupara Kundram. And we got permission from they don't allow photographs, but because they knew we were astrologers, and they allowed us to take a picture of Sage Parashar. It was very, every time I go to Madurai, I must go to this temple and do the darshan of Sage Parashar. And so, of course, now we are a bit stuck here. So continuing with the analyzing Rahu Ketu, just to let you know that I have a number of books that you can see on my website, komilla.com. And this is my latest book on Shodasha Varga. It came out last year. And also I teach, and my courses will begin in March 2022. I have 4 sets of courses every year, live courses, so you can look it up. It's a big subject. I don't know. I wrote all sorts of things, and I'm going to try to cover most of them. But, I want to focus on this aspect of analyzing Rahu Ketu, and as much as we can get in the time. Always, there's something that is left so that you can come again and see. So please ask questions at the end of the lecture. This is another photograph of, this is actually Vasuki. And this is from a temple in Karnataka. It's beautiful. You have to go down. This is the entrance, and you have to go underground for Vasuki. And again, this is a place, Kukke Subramanya, where people go to worship Rahu Ketu or to take a remedy for Rahu Ketu. So Rahu Ketu have are shadow planets. They do not have their own energy. Therefore, their rulers are very important as they are trying to control, or you could say manage Rahu Ketu. I'm not going to go through any basics of Rahu Ketu. I'm going straight into the subject. Rahu Ketu are the most powerful planets. As you know, they eclipse the sun and the moon. If allowed to express themselves fully, they can eclipse the other planets. And Rahu Ketu are the reason of our rebirth. And they represent karma from past life that has remained unfulfilled. So Ketu shows all the past life knowledge, the baggage, all the issues that we carry in our subconscious. And Rahu is trying to fulfill the unfinished desires of the past life. Because these things have not got reconciled, because we haven't sorted them out, this is why we are reborn again, because we are trying, we have got some desires left in us. We have got our past life issues that we haven't reconciled. And then, of course, we come here and then we add more to it. The main aspect of all spiritual disciplines is trying to let go of this unfulfilled karma and, to see this aspect of, being contented, so that then the Rahu and Ketu are not bothering us. But that's a big project. So the difference between Saturn and Rahu, according to the classics, they say Shanivat Rahu. That means Rahu acts like Saturn. But they have very distinct personalities and jobs to do. Saturn is the karma we have to face, and Rahu is the unfulfilled desires from the past life. So what Saturn is saying that deal with your karma, pay it back, so that you are leaving this life lighter weight. Whereas Rahu says, oh no, don't do that. I have so many desires, so many things, long list of bucket list, you could say, a long list of what we want to do, and it keeps on increasing. So in a way, they both are agents of karma, but different types of karma that we have to consider. So Rahu Ketu have two calculations, true and mean node. We should study them both, as they have different purposes. Actually, last year I did a conference on Rahu Ketu, and we had some great scholars talking about Rahu Ketu. And one of the things that was very predominant is what node to use, true node or mean node. But both of them have a slightly different purpose. The two type of nodes show a different calculation when shown in natal charts of around 1 degree. But in the long run, mean node and true node cover the same distance in the same time. Therefore, they can both be considered as an accurate calculation. So here I have the chart of Kamala Harris. So you can see that she has, this is, I always use mean node, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But just to let you know that in all the softwares will give this. So as an astrologer, we have to be friends with our setting. And here we see mean, and there's see Rahu Ketu nodes, mean node. If I do true node, the position changes. You see here, true node, she gets Rahu exactly on her lagna at 1 degree. And if we go to mean node, it is, and like with anything, one can always decide whichever one is there, one can make a case of it. And many of the people, and I know Dr. Charak and Goel Sab was saying today he uses true node, but I've always used the mean node, but I'll just explain to you my thinking. So calculation of mean node, true node can change the position of Rahu Ketu in the vargas. So you have to check your settings. And so that's why I said that everywhere then you have different positions. And this is a question that I'm asked all the time. My Rahu is different than yours. So therefore, you have to be also clear when you're talking Rahu Ketu that which node you're using. If studying karmic issues, mean node is important. While for predictive events, true node can be used. Often you see that like transit and all, the true node tends to bring the more specific aspect. But the mean node is kind of when you want to look at karma. And I use mean node as Jyotish is the study of karma. So if you want to know what are the past life issues Rahu Ketu have brought into this life, what are the karmic issues, if you want to see what's happening right now and things, then, so you should know both the positions. But over the years, this has been a discussion. I was telling Meenakshi, I started studying in 1979. So I've met many teachers and students, and, I've been thinking about this for a long time. But I find that mean node has worked really well because it is, if you want to study the karmic aspects, then, and last year at Arsha Jyotish conference, there was the great lecture by Jairamji, and you could listen to that as well if you haven't listened to it already. So this is the key difference when you're looking at the nodes. So all this class, I will be using the mean node. So let us just look at Rahu. And here, I have to say, since things came online, one of the great pleasures is to find all these interesting pictures and all. Although this picture I took in near Mumbai, and this is a temple, a Lord Ganesha temple, and somebody had all the deities there. And here you can see Rahu. He's got the same size disk as the sun, and he's only the head. And this is most important factor about Rahu. And when you're analyzing Rahu as well, he's being pulled by a lioness, or it looks like a tiger really, but that's an artistic expression. And Rahu co-rules Aquarius, is exalted in Taurus, debilitated in Gemini. Mool Trikona is, debilitated in Scorpio. Mool Trikona is Gemini. Sage Parashar also gives rulership of Rahu to Virgo. Now, this is very interesting because Sage Parashar does not give it at the beginning of the book, but in the chapter on the dashas. And last year, my main course was on Vimshottari Dasha. So in that chapter, he talks about Rahu's rulership of Virgo. And this is given in BPHS chapter 49, and this is the Sagar edition. There it is. So you can look it up for the reference up for yourself as well. So always, when you're looking at, it's not just for Gemini astrology. If you're looking for Rahu's role, you have to look at different aspects of Rahu. And so sometimes you can see its strength in Virgo, its strength in Taurus, Aquarius. And then Marana Karakasthana. I think this is a very important aspect. So Marana Karakasthana, every planet has a place where he is dysfunctional. And Marana means death, and Karaka is, significator or doer, and Sthan is its position where Rahu is death-like. But what I see, I've done quite a bit of research on Marana Karakasthana. What I see is that it's almost like, that planet, when he goes in that house, he gets very death-like. That means he's not moving. You have to activate the energy. And sometimes, especially Rahu and the ninth house, ninth house is the house of the guru. And you see that Rahu and Jupiter, also the Guru Chandala Yoga, and Rahu in the ninth house, it gives a propensity of getting wrong advice. It's not the rulership of Rahu of the ninth house, but Rahu placed in the ninth house. And also either take wrong advice or get wrong advice, because Rahu is very powerful. So he feels that I know better. And so in the ninth house of the guru, it means that you are following the wrong teacher. Sometimes in a more modern world, Rahu in the ninth house can also give you good teachers, but foreign teachers. Remember, traditionally, it used to be really negative if you went outside your own culture or own society. So therefore, don't take it as a negative position, but it is open to misuse. That's really a thing to understand with the Marana Karakasthanas, that unless you are aware and doing things. Now, some people have given Ketu fourth house as Marana Karakasthana for Rahu, but for Ketu, sorry. But I tend to just look at Rahu as Marana Karakasthana. And here we have the chart of Michael Jackson. And his birth date is here, 29th August 58, 7:32 p.m. in Gary, Indiana, not India. Gary, Indiana. I never noticed. So the thing with Michael Jackson is that you can see ninth house here. Rahu is there. He's got Rahu Jupiter, the Guru Chandala Yoga as well. And Rahu in the ninth house, in the Marana Karakasthana. So I think what is important here is that if you know about Michael Jackson's life, he had all these, he had that propensity to have all the advisors. We cannot say they are gurus in any sense, but we could say advisors, that he had the ability to take the wrong advice and get the wrong advice, and all his medical advice as well, and all the other things. So it's very well known. And so when you look at his chart, you see Rahu in the 9th house, then you can see that issue. Sometimes what happens, especially in celebrities' charts, you don't really know them. But when you look at their chart, you wonder, is that correct? That 9th house Rahu, and of course, problems with his father as well. So these things are there in his chart and were there in his life. So, and it is also the co-ruler of his lagna. Aquarius lagna, Saturn is one ruler, Rahu is the other ruler. So you see that Rahu, maybe he felt like some of the aspects of Rahu, outsider, foreign, different. Rahu is the demon among the gods, so he feels very much an outsider. He's a demon who's become a planetary deity, and so he doesn't fit in, misfit, you could say, doesn't fit in. And one of the key aspects of Rahu when you're studying it, and this is something that I'm always also advising my clients when they are going into Rahu Dasha or Rahu, is the feeling of dissatisfaction. Rahu can give immense dissatisfaction, and that is something that we have to learn to manage it, because otherwise Rahu can become, we can become all very agitated and worried. And now we see Ketu here. So Ketu, you can see, is headless. Sometimes this is a very unusual photograph of his. I think I found it on Wikipedia. But here we see that he's on a owl, and that is also typical of Ketu, because Ketu is opposite to normal, so you have the owl that is awake at night, sleeping in the morning, and here we see he's headless, so no head here. The head is belonging to Rahu. So therefore this aspect of Rahu Ketu, Ketu is without the head. So if we think about Rahu being our present life, our desires, the head is always wanting to consume, whereas Ketu is holding on to things. He doesn't have a head with which to express himself. And Ketu co-rules Scorpio, exalted in Scorpio, debilitated in Taurus. At present, we have Rahu Ketu exalted by transit. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're okay, because they're very powerful. They're only okay if you know how to handle them. If you are, if they're given their head, then they can be totally, overpowering. Mool Trikona for Ketu is Sagittarius. Sage Parashar also gives rulership of Ketu to Pisces. So this is in the BPHS chapter 49. So Ketu holds karmic baggage, finds difficult to let go. Ketu is Moksha Karaka. But you see, we obviously, all of us did not find moksha in our past life, so we've come again. So this is the major aspiration of Ketu. And we think that just because Ketu is moksha karaka, he will give us moksha. No, we have to resolve our karmic baggage. And that one, as long as we hold on to the karmic baggage, then we are not ready or prepared for moksha. That is all the spiritual disciplines, like at the ashram, they're teaching all that. But Ketu is also jnana karaka. And Gyan means knowledge, and he brings, obviously, many lifetimes have been spent and we have gained knowledge from many lifetimes. And often some gurus say that when they met their guru, they had that instant recollection after they got the blessings of Guru, of the knowledge of past lives. So where is that knowledge resting? That is also resting in Ketu. But Ketu does not reveal its knowledge only to those who are following a more spiritual path. One of the things I've found with Ketu myself is that it is like epiphany moments in your lifetime. Suddenly we get to know, oh, this is the connection. Even with astrology, if you try too hard or you get stressed out, it's not giving. But when you get onto the right path, when you are firstly following the right path, and even then he's not revealing everything together. Actually, the thing is this, that if he reveals everything together, it's too much, because we won't know what to do with it. It's too much. So that is something to think about. So Rahu Ketu together, obviously they are together in the chart. So this is again from this Nagarkoil temple. And you can see this is Lord Shiva, Shivalingam, and there's a Rahu Ketu. And the offering is also done yellow color and as well as turmeric. These are actually the turmeric pods, or I don't know what they are called. But when you go to these temples, you can buy all these stuff outside, and they sell you the turmeric with milk. But those who are in know, they bring it from home. But and they tie these ribbons. And especially if they feel, because Rahu Ketu represent all the old karma. So if they feel there's some restriction from past life, something, they will come and make the offering. And then once that restriction has been removed, it's very important to go back and to thank that, for removing the obstacle. So, and this is, again, this you can see Rahu Ketu here. Rahu Ketu, and this is Ketu. Ketu is always dressed in multiple colors. And this is Rahu. This photograph is from the Ketu temple in Chennai. Last year, before 2002, before the lockdown happened, we visited all the Navagraha temples in Chennai. And they're relatively, some of them are small. And the Ketu temple was most beautiful, very sweet, beautiful. And they were very welcoming also. And you can see the two snakes here. And this is Ketu and Rahu. So Rahu usually dressed in either navy or black, and Ketu is printed clothes. Very much so what I'm wearing is like Ketu, colorful. So Ketu can give quite a colorful experience as well. So their importance is that they have no substance, are physically non-existence, but their influence is full of potency. They can bring darkness, but they have spiritual significance too. You see, they bring darkness that is what you're pursuing. The idea for Rahu Ketu is for you to show you light. That is really, they are the enemy within, which is hard to see or know. You can see it on a personal level as well as a global. So the secret enemy within means that it is the fight within ourselves. There's a Sanskrit word, antardvand, maybe Hindi, inner agitation we have, that people can't see that. Rahu Ketu issues are very secretive. There are lots of things you can do with analysis, but I think these things are important to understand. Our opposing natures each struggle within for supremacy, the dark and the light. As all of us have a darker side to our nature, if expressed unchecked, would create havoc within our lives. By trying to control it, we learn the true lesson of Rahu Ketu, to express the illuminating side of their nature. So to allow that darkness to be resolved, to move on. And I actually like to think not control so much as manage it, or, to look after the Rahu Ketu energy. If you give them their head, both of them, they can be very complicated in life. So I've already spoken about their past life issues. While studying Rahu, always remember its negativity and its great power. You see, mostly people only look at the negative aspect of Rahu, but Rahu has a very important lesson. And when I say Rahu, I also mean Ketu. And it is the ability for us to overcome that karmic obstacles and to learn to manage our desires, to become masters rather than servants of Rahu. Rahu Ketu So one of the main aspects of Rahu is that they are only half the story. They are split in two, so each represents only half the story. Therefore, their vision is incomplete. Very often you see people with powerful Rahu or Ketu for that matter. They will say, I know everything, but they don't know everything, because if they are just living in Rahu or just living in Ketu, they are not totally knowing the other side of the picture. So therefore we have to understand, and this thing cannot be brought through intellectual understanding. One has to do sadhana, spiritual work, where yoga, uh, yoga philosophy, not yoga asana, Vedanta, all those things are important. Then here we have Rahu, and you can see here that he's very fierce looking, and he's got the sword in his hand, and just half the body. So that is the key factor with Rahu to understand. Here it looks like a lion, a lioness or lion that he rides. And Ketu, no head. Again, Ketu has a flag, he has a defensive shield, but he has a sword as well. So Ketu is there. So now when we are actually analyzing Rahu Ketu, we have to understand the karmic axis. Rahu Ketu axis winds itself around us like the snake of time, both in fact twining us within restrictions of time, making us struggle to get out of it, to allow us to overcome darkness restrictions that we have created through our own actions. It's not somebody else who has brought these things on. Obviously, our chart is our own chart. It is our responsibility. So Rahu Ketu is also our responsibility. Rahu Ketu axis controls us. The influence of Rahu Ketu axis is deep. It forms major issues in this life. And that is the beauty of studying Jyotish, is that as astrologers, Rahu Ketu should not be the issues. We are trying to understand them and work with them, because their influence is there, but it is also to understand and try to work with them, manage them, not be under their control. So the planets that rule Rahu Ketu have a huge responsibility to manage these karmic energies and bring out the best of them. So the first aspect when you are looking at Rahu Ketu is also to understand what are the signs they are in, what are the planets they are ruling. And Rahu Ketu axis shows the struggles each incarnations bring with it. Areas of life that churned up as we try to find the meaning. Axis is complex, hard to fathom. It pulls you apart and is responsible for the psychological turmoil. So it is not sometimes even visible to other people, because it's all hidden away. They are pushing and pulling you, either way. It's that is the aspect of the karmic axis. As the main impact is on the mind, it deals with your fears, desires deep in your consciousness. The power of Rahu Ketu have over our life and struggles to free us from their influence. As escape, we must, if we are to find that calmness and tranquility. We must get out of their shadow and be masters of what they represent. You see, usually Rahu Ketu are always shown as snakes. You saw the pictures that I was showing you earlier, that they are the snake energy. So in India, when there's a whole class of people that are called snake charmers, and they deal with snakes, and they know how to catch the snake, and what they do is that when they catch the snake, they put him in a box, and then he goes to sleep. If you open him out, and then he is going to, he still will not bother you. I had gone few years ago to South Africa, and we went to the bush, and the guy who was showing us around, he said that the snakes will never bite you. They just keep sleeping. It's only if you inadvertently step on them by mistake, then they will immediately bite you. So with Rahu Ketu, we have to keep them sleeping in a sense, that we are not aggravating those issues. And our modern lifestyle is naturally aggravates Rahu Ketu, because we don't, I'm not saying you do it, but most of people don't take any kind of spiritual precautions that are there. So another aspect that is very important to remember about Rahu Ketu, the push of and pull of past and future lives is forever splitting us apart. Sometimes we live completely in Rahu, which is the future, others completely in Ketu. This creates havoc in our lives as we become polarized. In their drama, we forget to live in today. So many clients that come to me or people that talk to me, they're always saying, oh, so-and-so did this to me, this happened to me last year, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, what they remember. And then they'll say, oh, I'm so worried about the future. So there's no kind of attention to what is happening today, enjoy the scenery that is coming today. And so this aspect of Rahu Ketu, they are not allowing you to live in the present. So when we are living in the present, we are breathing every ocean of the present, living the good life today, a good life, then there's no fear of the future. And by doing the right things today, you are letting go of a lot of the past things as well. But, if it was easy to resolve, I remember talking to my Guruji, and I said, first time he did my chart, I said, how can I resolve it? And he replied to me, if it was so easily resolvable, what would be the problem? And I think of it, so many years later, I think of those very wise words that, we have to work with it. And it takes time and attention and some good spiritual guidance as well. And Jyotish is the science of light. It's bringing light to us. And this morning, Swamiji said very beautifully that the science of Jyotish is light. And because we are doing the Kumbh Mela around the time of Diwali, which is a festival of light, it is a time of, bringing light to ourselves. So this conference is giving us this many new things to enlighten us. And so now we're looking at the analysis of Rahu Ketu axis. So has to connect with the physical and the subtle. The deeper you take your journey, the more information you'll be privy to. And I know many of you have been doing serious Jyotish for years and years that are here in the class. And so you know that it's not something that you understand in one day. And however advanced you are as a teacher or as a Jyotish, it doesn't tell you everything. And every year you may gain some new knowledge with Rahu Ketu. So the journey is it's a lifelong journey, because the deeper you go, the more you purify, the more you need to purify, So the Rahu Ketu, calming them down, not allowing them to agitate, cause your psychological issues for you. Because if, you have to have an understanding about it. And so when we are analyzing the axis, I'm going to use the chart of Kamala Harris. So she's the vice president of USA, and she is, I would say she's very much the outsider in the sense, she's the woman with the highest official status she has as a job as the vice president, but she is half Black, half Indian, so she doesn't belong to either side, she's got heritage. She's working with, as a woman, she can be an outsider as well. So I feel that she has a great Rahu energy for her. And here we can see that she has Rahu in the Lagna. And her date of birth is 20th October 1964, 2128, Oakland, California. So she's born close to me where I'm living now. And actually her parents were, her mother and her grandfather, very much connected to South India and to Tamil Nadu and I think Chennai. So she has been many times there as well. And although she's American, because you can see she's born in America, but Rahu is also the great politician. So here we see Rahu in the Lagna, total kind of political aspect here for her. And and I showed you her chart that if you use the true node, Rahu would come even closer to her Lagna. So sometimes when you're looking at a client's chart or your own chart or something, it's good to know both the positions. But you have to then kind of decide on one or the other, because otherwise it's just confusing, that you are confusing yourself as well. And so there's 4 steps of analyzing Rahu Ketu. The most important step of analyzing Rahu Ketu is that the house axis, that's the step number 1, reveals the area where the conflict between our past karma, present desires will be fought out. This is the first and key step. I don't look at the sign aspect first, I look at the house aspect. So in Kamala Harris's chart, you see Rahu is in the Lagna, very close to the Lagna, and Ketu is in the 7th house. So those are the key issues, self and the others, relationships. And so wherever Rahu is, that is where the key aspect is this. You can look at it from Chandra and Surya Lagna as well. From her Chandra Lagna, Rahu is in the 3rd house, Ketu is in the 9th house. So 9th house would be house of father, also Guru. And from her Surya Lagna, it's the opposite, because she's born with the almost full moon, you can see just before full moon. And so she has the 3rd and 9th house access. And definitely, her parents divorced at a young age. And so she was connecting to staying more with the mother. And 9th house also, education and learning. There was a lot of issues for Kamala Harris during the young age of education, because they were, I came much later to USA, so I don't remember that time, but they were transporting children to wealthier areas and better education. So you see that 9th house, which is to do with learning, education, but father from the moon, Ketu is in the 9th, from the sun, Rahu is in the 9th. So normally, just one point about Marana Karaka Sthana, I tend to look at that only from the Lagna, but you could look at it from the sun, from the moon as well. But I tend to look at it only from the Lagna. So the step 2 is the signs and Rashi that rule this house axis represent the strengths or weaknesses. Signs and their rulers show how the axis is activated. Rashi lords of Rahu Ketu become the controllers of the karma, because they are the ones, Rahu Ketu are shadows, so they're lords. It's just like if you are, the owner of the snake, you are the owner, it's your responsibility, or you're owner of any of the houses. So the lords of Rahu Ketu. And so the second aspect is the lords of Rahu Ketu. And in Kamala Harris's case, this is Gemini and Sagittarius axis. Just one other point I want to say, that Sagittarius, 7th house for Gemini Lagna is Badhaka as well. So therefore there's more emphasis on Rahu, herself. And as a politician, it's all about yourself, And the Lagna Lord and Rahu Lord both are placed in the 5th house. And 5th house is with Mercury is very close to the sun. Sun is power, and it is also combust. This is also a Buddha-Aditya yoga. But you see here that the interest in power is very strong. One of the big issues of Rahu is because Rahu is, always fighting with the sun and the moon. He wants the power that the sun has. And here Mercury, as the ruler of Rahu, is placed with the sun, which is power. Although sun is in Libra, but it's still about power and success. And, she was in the, what's the right word? She was stood for president, and then she finally became vice president. And also another factor that you see is that her Mercury is in Swati Nakshatra, which is ruled by Rahu. So again, it goes back to the Lagna. So that Mercury is also, it's about herself. Whereas Ketu, which is karmic planet, there's more struggle with Ketu, because you see that it's a Badhaka house. And then the Lord of Ketu is in the 12th house. So 12th house is house of loss, expenses. And maybe if she was thinking about Ketu, she may be thinking about moksha and self-realization. But when we look at Kamala Harris's chart here, let me just show you her dashas. You can see here she is in Rahu Dasha. Actually, right now, since July 2020 to January 2023, she is in Rahu Mercury Dasha. So therefore, this aspect of Rahu in the Lagna, grand ambitions, politics, it's Lord in the 5th house, which is also to do with prime minister, not the chief minister, the main person, the number, the advisor to the king. So there she is vice president. And also it's Purva Punya, good luck from past lives. And here it's all about Rahu for her. She's been in Rahu Dasha for a few years, 2012 to 2030. And so all aspects of Rahu. So when you're judging the axis, you can see Rahu's Lord is well placed. 5th house, it is, but it is the 7th house. The 7th house, Ketu's Lord is in the 12th. So they are not so well placed. But also, it is not Ketu's Dasha just now. It is Rahu's Dasha. So it is very much Rahu's the predominant personality for her. I was thinking whose chart to use for today, and I thought, I thought that she is just the perfect indicate person for looking at these dashas. So house access, the nakshatras that rule the access give you subtleties. They unveil the spiritual process of Rahu Ketu. So what nakshatras are telling you of what is the thinking behind Rahu Ketu? You see, each case, the thinking behind Rahu Ketu is very important as well. And here in Kamala Harris's chart, I just wanted to say also Rahu is in Gemini, which is his Mool Trikona sign. So Rahu has got quite a lot of power here. And Ketu is in Sagittarius, which is also good for Ketu. So they are very powerful here. But Ketu is in his own nakshatra. It's a Mula nakshatra. But I think a little bit Ketu is hampered by being in a Badhaka sign. Rahu has no such issues. Rahu is in its own, in the first house. That means it's all about self, and its Lord Mercury is in Rahu's nakshatra. So Rahu is the master. So, and I think the important thing to see about the nakshatras is you can study more about the nakshatras. Rahu here is in Mrigasira nakshatra, Mars nakshatra. So Mrigasira is the thinking nakshatra, that is where the Lord is Soma, the moon. So Rahu is very prominent in that. His pada is Libra. You can see Rahu is rising in the Navamsha as well. And, Rahu is everywhere. And if you take Rahu to be, I'm just seeing, I think Rahu, if you're using Rahu as Atma Karaka, then he would become Atma Karaka as well. Mars, even though debilitated Mars, it is this morning, Dr. Charak gave an excellent lecture on Raja Yogas and debilitation. I think if you didn't hear it, you just got to hear that lecture. That was just quite brilliant, because one of the things that he focused on us was that debilitated planets also can give you great power and success. And he looked at the debilitated planets in Rashi, Navamsha, Dashamsha, other vargas as well. So here we see, it's an almost exact debilitation of Mars. And Mars is the sixth lord. And one of the rules that Dr. Charak was saying was that the sixth lord being debilitated is a Raja Yoga Karaka, Raja Yoga in itself. So here we see that the Mars being debilitated as the sixth lord, sixth, eighth, or 12th lords. There are some other rules as well. I got to listen to that lecture again because it was really very good and inspiring. So here we see that her Lagna Lord is the sixth lord, as Nakshatra Lord. So what does the sixth house do? It's a Upachaya house. It's a house of competition. And if you look at Kamala Harris's chart, she has competed from a very young age. She was in politics from God knows 20s or something, and she's won all sorts of things. She was San Francisco Attorney General, California Attorney General, California Senator again. Now she's Vice President. So this sixth house is, so don't just go by the debilitation. It's a sixth house, but it's also Rahu's Nakshatra Lord. So she's thinking always competition. Even you can look at Mrigasira, Lordship, all those things. So the Nakshatra is showing the thinking behind the planet. Any planet, you look at the Nakshatra, you can read up about it. And I've written a book on the nakshatras as well. And the fourth step about Rahu Ketu, why they are very complicated, is that Rahu Ketu, you have to study the vargas, and 9 vargas where there's where it is an axis, and 7 out of the 16 vargas, they are together. Here there is only one planet that is the Lord of Rahu Ketu. So if we look at the 16 vargas, so where is here it is varga chart. So if we look, sorry, it's only North Indian here, but it doesn't really matter because we are not analyzing. But if we look here in the Hora, they are together, Rahu Ketu. But when we look at D16, they are together, D20, D24, D45, D40, Trimshamsha, D30. So you're seeing that the vargas, there is a lot of complexity in analyzing the vargas. I think so. There's only one planet that is controlling the vargas. So when you come into Rahu Ketu dasha, then they are going to be together, whether it's Rahu dasha or Ketu dasha. In the inner picture, the internal picture of Rahu Ketu, they are together there. So that is most important to see. That's the fourth step of Rahu Ketu. And step one, the bhava axis, just to repeat, Rahu Ketu place will give immediate information. What are the areas that is the influence? So that's the first step. Axis pulls in two directions. Correct way to deal is connect them together rather than having separate agendas. However, it's easy for me to say it. The turmoil of the axis causes is when you pull in opposite directions. In the axis, always one of the positions is negative. You'll see that wherever your Rahu Ketu is, one of them is not well placed. So we have to learn how to work with that energy where it is. Rahu is keen to fulfill his agenda, Ketu his own. Once you realize the agenda is of both is the same, then the axis starts flowing together. You have to learn to give to the opposite party, love not reject, Ketu, give not take for Rahu. The main aspect is that you have to realize that Rahu has a tail. He's got a past life. What we are wanting today has its roots in our past life. And therefore, there's something that we are lacking that Rahu wants to fulfill. But is that lacking just on material terms? Because that is not going to bring the fulfillment. And the more we achieve, the less satisfied we are. That is why, because that is not the answer. So these things need some deep spiritual work as well. So one will be always negatively placed, either Rahu or Ketu. Rahu Ketu are considered good in Upachaya houses, 3, 6, 10, 11. They get progressively better. They are good in 3rd, better in 6th, great in 10th, outstanding in the 11th. Even positively placed Rahu Ketu can bring karmic issues and bring disturbances. So here we see another chart. I don't know, I hadn't planned it, but the Swami Shivananda here, he has Rahu in the Lagna, and he has Mars and Saturn with it. So you see, you'd think that's a very complicated chart. But one thing here is the Lagna Lord, Moon is in the 10th house, aspected by Jupiter. So all these 3 planets are managed. Secondly, I've noticed that the gurus, sometimes they don't have all the exalted planets in their chart because they are doing some karma and they know how to manage it. And Swami Shivananda was a full life in service. If this life was in a material way, then all these planets, Rahu would be agitating, Mars would be agitating, Saturn would be. So you see, and then Rahu is in Ashlesha Nakshatra. And Ashlesha Nakshatra is connected to Patanjali, to the Yoga Sutras, and it's a Dharma Nakshatra. So Dharma means that it's about duty and responsibility and doing the right thing. And the 2 mind planets are connected here, the moon as the Rashi Lord and Mercury as the Nakshatra Lord. But as I said, when the gurus are there, they have a certain different way to look at life, and they have learned those things. And Ketu is, Lord of Ketu is in the Lagna. Saturn and Ketu is in the nakshatra of Mars in the Lagna. So it's whole life of fulfilling some agenda that Swamiji had. And so in essence, Rahu, Ketu, Mars, Rahu, Ketu's Lord is Saturn and Nakshatra Lord is Mars, and Rahu is there in the Lagna, and its Lord Moon is the controller of everything, of karmic things. And in case of Mercury is the Nakshatra Lord of Rahu, being in Ashlesha. And the next step of Rahu Ketus know their signs and position. So I talked about this already. Are they strong enough to control the power of Rahu Ketu? You want to study the strengths and weaknesses of the Lord of Rahu Ketu by dignity, house position, conjunction, and I would say by your personal effort. What are you doing to strengthen the Lords? What is your personal practice, sadhana? How are you helping yourself? There's something in the chart. If we look at Swamiji's chart, I already showed you Rahu's Lord is the moon, and moon is in the 10th house, aspected by Jupiter. So that's a Hamsa Mahapurusha yoga, not Hamsa Mahapurusha yoga, Gaja Kesari yoga. So it is very powerful there. And so we look at the position of the things. And also in Swami Shivananda's chart, he founded his Forest Academy in Rishikesh during Rahu Dasha. So Rahu was very significant for him because, in his case, Rahu was the visionary, the light, and not so much about personal ambition. So this is Amachi's chart, and so this is Amritananda Ma, and she's the hugging goddess here. And here we can see again Rahu in the 4th house, Ketu in the 10th. So Ketu is well placed for her, and Ketu's Lord Moon is exalted. Rahu's Lord Saturn is exalted. So you see that the planets that are bothering her or can bother her, of course, a lot of work for Amachi is also traveling, meeting foreign people. So Rahu Ketu in the chart of saints is also important because it is about traveling, meeting foreign people. Those are Rahu Ketu, calming other people's agitation. But she has both Rahu's Lord exalted, Ketu's Lord exalted in her chart. And then Rahu is in Uttara Ashada Nakshatra, which is ruled by the sun. But Uttara Ashada is also the hard bed. It is the difficult energy, that one is doing the tapas to purify yourself. So that Rahu has got an ascetic quality there. And Ketu is in Cancer, and this is in Pushya Nakshatra. And Pushya is the guru, it's ruled by Jupiter. And Saturn, its deity is Brihaspati, not. And here again, Pushya's Lord Saturn is exalted. So you see, there's a lot of digging deeper. You can look at this. And so when you're looking at Bhava and Rashi together, first study the house positions. You can, Jyotish is endless analysis. You can look at it from the sun, moon, Dasha Lord point of view. The signs they rule, the axis, the planets that rule the sign, relationship between the planets. Planets are subject to five-fold relationship: exaltation, debilitation, friend, enemy. For example, Mars in Leo is friends, while Venus in Cancer is enemies. So you can look at the thing. Then the relative position of Rahu and Ketu, the lords of Rahu Ketu, if they are placed in 6th, 8th, 12th house from each other, they can stop the flow of mutual energy, rulers' relationship with each other, Mars, Venus are neutral to each other. So now if you see the chart here of Kamala Harris, what you see is that her Mercury is in the fifth house. Jupiter, the lord of Ketu, is in the 12th house. So they are 6-8 from each other. So there is some disconnection in her life. Of course, she's not she started life in Ketu Dasha. So actually, if you look at her start of her Dasha, first 4 years was Ketu. So you can see here that it was end of Ketu Dasha that her parents split. So there were some karmic issues, and there's a disconnection between Rahu's Lord and Ketu's Lord. But these disconnections can be worked out. Why is Jyotish there? It's to show you this light. But there's a natural disconnection, and she had the Ketu Dasha as a child, and she had, as I told you, this is up to the age of 4. So at the end of Ketu, early Venus Dasha, parents split up. So that is something that she had to experience. And so planets that are in 4th, 7th, 10th from each other show learning through stress and opposition. Planets 3, 11 are good. Oppositions make the axis further polarized. If you have planets opposite each other, they can be understanding, but also promoting the agenda. Conjunctions to the axis ruler will intensify. You may find difficulty in letting go of the issues. If Rahu is like in Michael Jackson's chart, he had Rahu with Jupiter. So then Rahu is wanting what Jupiter's got, and is all the time seeking the advice and seeking the gurus, but he's not listening to the aspects. Then study the vargas for Rahu Ketu's impact. Now, varga study is a whole study in itself to look at the vargas. And 7 vargas have Rahu Ketu together: D2 Hora, Shodashamsha D16, Vimshamsha D20, Siddhamsha D24, Trimshamsha D60, Chaturvedamsha D40, and Akshavedamsha D45. Now, in these vargas, the coded message is that the karma of past life and what we are trying to work out in this life and the happiness we seek, because they are in the same sign, it's focusing on one sign, and it's like the Kundalini is resting in that one sign. So they're always in Rahu Ketu Dasha, there's always vargas where they are placed together, therefore creating hidden issues and difficulties. And then we have to see how to deal with it. Now, a main thing that I like to see is that if they are together in the Varga Lagna or Vargesh or with moon, actually, if you have like the Trim Shamsha chart, if Rahu Ketu are with the moon or sun, then you can see that is some big issues that you are bringing in with the life, because Trim Shamsha is 6th house energy, karma that we have to resolve in this lifetime. And if we look at Kamala Harris's chart, and here this I'm going to just do a D30 chart here. So I noticed that just now she has in the Trim Shamsha Lagna, she has Rahu, Ketu, Moon, and Sun. So these, some deep down, and again, let me remind you that this is not something that is visible for any one of us. We as astrologers, we have that ability through the charts to see, but you can see here that she has Ketu, Moon, Sun, Ketu, Moon, Sun, Rahu. That means this Rahu, Ketu axis is together, and the Lord of this axis, Mars, is in the 8th house. And she's at present in Rahu Dasha, Before that, she was in Mars Dasha. So there's some inner struggle that she's going through right in the Lagna that is placed in the Trimshamsha chart. Now, it may be if you use a true node, Rahu Ketu may move, but we are using mean node because we are studying the karmic issues that are there. So this is Michael Jackson's chart, and Michael Jackson's chart I wanted to see. And there's one varga, this is D16 varga. This is a varga that is also your ability to control your weaknesses. It usually says transport and all sorts of things. You can look at that as well, but it's also luxury items, desires. And here what you can see is that Michael Jackson has Rahu Ketu in the Trimshamsha Lagna with Venus. So, and Venus is the seventh lord. But the main thing is that the lord of Rahu Ketu is debilitated here. And a debilitated planet doesn't have the capacity to manage those desires. You know, they say these are things that are like, you could look at transport, but you can also look at luxury things that we want to have, good watches, good, things that we wear on ourselves. And he had a lot of things, you know, he had warehouses full of oddities and things that he had bought. But his weaknesses, which is also to do with Venus, is there here in his chart. And if we look at Venus in the Lagna, Venus is his fourth lord and ninth lord. So one of this aspect is also with the ninth lord father issues. But wherever Rahu Ketu is there, and this needs a deep study into seeing what is there. So before I move forward, is there anybody has any questions? I noticed there's a couple of questions here. Oh, Scott, you've written so long.
I know, it's all the way back there, but I can scroll back.
No, I can see that, but it's too long for me to.
All right, no problem.
Yeah, but people can read. Is famous for his association with an also 20th century astrologer researcher. Yeah. So I'm not disagreeing with you.
I'm asking, what I was asking about is we have these, I think you kind of answered it when you talked about stress aspects, but there's just such a tradition going back to medieval times in the West of planets square within a degree or two to the nodal axis being very karmic or very important. And, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more about the sun node research of the mid 20th century as it gets out there. So,
I think the squaring is also important because, all these things will show up in the vargas. If a planet is exactly square, if Rahu Ketu are squaring the sun and moon, then that is also an important aspect. Yes.
Thank you.
Oh. I've got my headphones on, but I forgot to put the plug. So serious Rahu Ketu thing. So Meenakshi is saying that this is supposed to be interactive. Meenakshi should have told me before because I prepared all this. So I'm going to just keep it as is. So the last thing is the transits of the nodes. They're quite important. As nodes transit through different signs, they raise the consciousness about certain issues while indicating a separation or finishing your karmic debt about the others. Rahu's transit is showing you what you are about to experience. Usually it's a positive transit, enhancing qualities of the planets it transits. Ketu is about what you're letting go. Ketu's transit through a house always connects past life issues to now. Ketu shows up your vulnerabilities where there's work to be done. So therefore, Ketu is when you're looking at Rahu Ketu, you are seeing that there are, by transit just now, Rahu Ketu are actually making an important transit right now. One sec, let's go through this. Important transit right now because they are exalted. 8 degrees Ketu and 8 degrees Rahu. Rahu is in Taurus. And more importantly is that we are right now, this conference is right at the eclipse. In fact, I was thinking that I'm going to be scheduled to talk Rahu Ketu on the eclipse because my next talk is on near the eclipses. So let's just look at the eclipse. So there are 2 eclipses happening now. One is on 20th of, this is 2021, December. So this is 4th of December. I just made it for Washington, D.C., 2:43. It is eclipse you can see at 18 degrees Scorpio, Ketu eclipse. This is the last eclipse in Scorpio Taurus axis. And before that, we have an eclipse which is on 19th of, and if you look at this aspect here, let me just, so if you do eclipses 2021, you can see where the eclipses are taking place. And the solar eclipse is, what has happened here? It's, if you see here, the solar eclipse is on, it's in Antarctica, and it's very interesting, Arctic and Antarctica. And one of the things they're talking in the climate conferences about how much ice is melting in these areas. And so these eclipses are very much, and the lunar eclipse, which is on 19th October, 19th, it's a partial lunar eclipse, but you see it's visible throughout the world. It's USA, South America, India, Asia, China, Africa, and some parts of Europe are out of it. So that means that these last 2 eclipses, they are very important. But one of the things that you want to see with the eclipses is that you want to see, have you got any planets in either Rahu, where Rahu is transiting or where Ketu is transiting. And on 13th of April, Rahu Ketu are going to go into Aries and Libra axis. So they are then starting the eclipses on Aries Libra axis. Ketu transit helps us to offload karma, can cut away roots, make you feel rootless and insecure, but also focus on new growth. Must make us ready for new growth, must focus spiritually as the new patterns can develop. So transit experience, you have to see what are the houses that is taking place. Is it going through planets? Because wherever Rahu Ketu are happening, that is where the eclipses are taking place. So you see that that is the area that is most impacted of our life. But of course, if it is going through your ascendant, descendant, it will be first, 7th house. Those are the most important ones over your moon, over your sun. But it's also, other houses, say eclipses taking place in your 10th house, there may be change in career. Generally, out of the transits, I think Rahu going in the 12th house can create a lot of expenses. In the 8th house, sudden changes, transformation. 6th house can bring enemies. Rahu Ketu, 6th house is regarded as a good transit. But the fact is this, that we should watch the eclipses when the eclipses are taking place, and we should watch those. And you can look at the general global impact and then the personal impact. Obviously, your own chart The next eclipse is at 18 degrees of where Sun Moon are there, 18 degrees of Scorpio. So if you have something at 18 degrees Scorpio, and the lunar eclipse tends to give instant results. So that is there. And when Rahu transits over Lagna, it gives high profile. Ketu is always tough, can make you reject yourself, feel misunderstood or faceless. So out of the two transits, Rahu, I did in my Rahu Ketu book, I wrote about Steven Spielberg. Every time Rahu went over his Lagna, he had a super hit film or he got awarded something. So Rahu, going over Lagna, 10th house, these are good transits to deal with. And these information I'm not going to go through because we are running out of time, but they are there for you. You will get all the notes. So if the eclipse takes place near the degree of ascendant, sun, moon, other planets, it indicates a major transformation. What happens depends on the dasha being experienced in other transits. Also, when you're looking at the eclipses, you have to see that how close they are to you, and nothing happens on the day of the eclipse because they are just indications. That means your thinking changes, there's some transformation, and these eclipses are not so rare. Every 7-8 years, the eclipses come back to the original position. Either the Rahu eclipse or Ketu eclipse. So the main thing to see is that how tightly connected to your planets it is. So like if you have something at 18 degrees or your birthday is at the day of the eclipse, then that is going to bring some change. Otherwise, it's a more looser aspect to it. So that is it for today. Any questions, comments, anything that you'd like to
Komilla ji, I had a question regarding Ketu position. Like always people relate Ketu to the detachment from the worldly people and it, as well as giving you the moksha. While, as we say, it doesn't come in everybody's life that way. So are there some positions like, being in 8th house or being in 12th house is going to go in that direction, or is any particular Rashi which we talk about in terms of?
I don't think it's Rashi. It's usually Ketu Dasha. I would say 75-80% of the time, if you get Ketu Dasha at a time, that is going to make you interested either in astrology or bhukti also, sabdasha. That is when people get interested in that area. So that's a 7-year dasha or bhuktis. The people will come during that time. They'll start studying or developing themselves. But I think, Meenakshi, it is something you can't really answer because it depends on the development of the person. It's a bigger picture whether, what triggers that Ketu up to go more spiritual, because Ketu can make you very successful as well. It's like a dhwaja, like a flag. He can take you, rise you, and give you great success as well. But the main thing I've noticed is that whatever you're doing, when Ketu Dasha comes, you tend to do the opposite. So that, if you're leading a very material life, then Ketu will encourage you to go more spiritual. But there is something extra, that we cannot take into consideration, that this dasha will make you, why people get transformed and others are still, struggling in the world.
Lovely. Thank you, Komilla ji. I got the answer.
Anybody else? Any questions? Anything? So I do apologize. Meenakshi, you said interactive. So I was not thinking about interactive. So therefore
Not a problem. I just wanted to make sure everybody asked their questions, especially write them in the chat.
Yeah.
Is what I was looking for. Because the whole topic of the Rahu Ketu is so interesting as well as so confusing at the same time. That we know it act like something. There are so many aspects of it. So brilliant lecture all towards that.
Thank you. I think it is confusing. That's the capital letters. It is confusing. We are always learning about them.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Good. So Rani ji.
It's a lot to process, Komilla ji. And I think it went a bit fast for me. So I'm going to go and watch the video again a couple of times. Like Meenakshi said, it's extremely interesting topic, very elusive to understand Rahu Ketu. I had a very simple question, actually. So do you take Rahu as AK anytime?
I do, yes.
So you use the, because it's retrograde, you use its degrees when it's lowest, right? When it's lowest. So my question is, why isn't it done the same way for retrograde planets, other planets?
No, because Rahu Ketu is always moving backwards. No, other planets will go forward, backwards. So that's not their nature. Rahu Ketu's nature is to move backwards. So they've got a different nature to the other planets.
Okay.
Did you have anything to say about Kal Sarpa, Komilla?
Yeah, I had things to say about Kal Sarpa, but I decided not to include it. But I can say something, there. I think the thing to see with Kal Sarpa is to watch the Kal Sarpa in the chart, which is very complicated if you have in your chart, because it is puts all the planets in Rahu Ketu axis. But also you can watch Kal Sarpa by transit, because when if we look at the chart for now, because we are soon going to get a Kal Sarpa by transit. So not everybody has Kal Sarpa in their chart, but all of us will deal with Kal Sarpa. And if we look at now, one of the reasons why Kal Sarpa happens is when Jupiter, Saturn go one side of Rahu Ketu. So you can see they have gone one side of Rahu Ketu. They are together, or one side of Rahu Ketu. Then the faster moving planets come that side, and then they create a Kal Sarpa yoga. And this can happen, every year. So here you can see Kal Sarpa yoga. This is 6th of January. We start the new year with Kal Sarpa yoga. So the main aspect of Kal Sarpa yoga is that it can make you very unstable. So whether you are experiencing by transit. So what happens with Kal Sarpa is, if you look at it, you have Kal Sarpa, and then moon is getting out of the Kal Sarpa. And then you have the Kal Sarpa again. So this Kal Sarpa continues with moon cut, and then when moon is out of Rahu, it is Kimadruma, isolated moon. So it's isolated, then it's there. So these are for all of us very times to be very conscious about how it's very easy for us to unsettle our lives, because you see here when all the planets are one side, and these are quite a few months this carries on. I'm just looking at that is February and March, and then I think it's April when there's Mercury has come out of, has broken the Kal Sarpa. So you're getting like from January to April, the intermittent Kal Sarpa. So you see very often, especially world events or political events taking place with these transit Kal Sarpas. There was, in India, they had the demonetization when Kal Sarpa was on. And so some people don't take it seriously, but I've taken these transit and I've watched them over the years. I think they are really very important. And of course, in your own natal chart, the Kal Sarpa means that Rahu Ketu are dominant. So you have to learn how to cope with them, how to deal with them. And mostly with Kal Sarpa, it is crucial that one is doing something more spiritual, because you see in the charts of people who have Kal Sarpa, especially politicians, they play very divisive politics. They cut the country into half. So I'm always very worried about that. But in a personal life, when you have Kal Sarpa, then, the axis is weighed on one side of the Kal Sarpa. There are cancellations for Kal Sarpa. Lagna Lord is strong. If the Lagna Lord is strong, Moon Lord is strong, then there are cancellations as well.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Yeah, Komillaji, can you comment upon when you have like this chart that you're showing, when you have in the natal chart one planet out of the Kal Sarpa, what kind of karmic message does that send?
No, then it is not a Kal Sarpa. That one planet becomes very dominant, like this chart. That means it's everything Mercury is trying to manage this Kal Sarpa. It's like singular planet controlling the Kal Sarpa. But the moon outside the Kal Sarpa is more complicated because it becomes isolated. It becomes Kimadruma moon when it's on one side. So that means that the mind, if it is steady, I think one of the main things with Rahu Ketu is that we have to keep a steady mind. And if the mind is steady, then our Rahu Ketu are working well. So that is the important factor. If our mind is unsteady, I will just show you, I did put some remedies, I'll just go there. But if the mind, you see, so same with Kal Sarpa, when moon is outside in the Kal Sarpa, this is when the Kal Sarpa is out. But when the moon is outside, that means that it depends on, and definitely if you're advising somebody, then you have to, sorry, it's not, yeah. If the moon is outside the Kal Sarpa, then you've got to advise people that they have to take care of their mind and to look at the mind as well. Because that is the key in handling Rahu Ketu. Because they are very confusing, they are creating a lot of unsettled energy. Then if we don't take care of the mind, then it becomes more complicated.
Thank you, Komillaji.
I just
interesting
some remedies here. So Rahu Ketu are nodes of the moon, therefore they impact the mind. So the remedy is done to pacify the mind. Mind creates maximum trouble if it is unsettled. Doing remedies to calm the mind, yoga, meditation, fasting, mantras, prayer, sadhana, all the things. And by yoga, I don't mean exercise, going to the gym, but the yogic lifestyle. Then other remedies, dana, donation, seva, service to others, karma yoga, voluntary work without expectation of rewards. These are all the remedies for it. And you can also do mantras to heal the subconscious, prayers to pacify the planetary deities. So I think that is the thing that with Rahu Ketu, they are going to disturb the mind, and that is what there is there. So yeah, Saurabh is saying I have in my natal chart only moon is outside the axis. So I think that is really So I think, Saurabh, for you also, it is important, and maybe all this work you're doing, and this is to keep the mind in a calm place when the mind feels, and life brings all the agitation as well. And Saurabh said that 6th of January last year, the moon was outside. You see what is happening for the 6th of January. Let's just get that chart. I've actually not looked at that chart seriously. So here we see, so that was when the agitation was there. You can see here, there's a cancellation, but what happens is now the public, it just got into their mind and then it goes out of control. This moon is being Venus is trying to cancel the Kimadruma. So you see, the mind is insecure or unsettled. They say like a kite which is flying, and the rope gets cut or the string gets cut. Then if the moon is outside the Kal Sarpa, and it's really when Kal Sarpa is on, and it's going to be on every year now for the next few years. I always very careful about keeping the mind steady at that time. Thank you very much for watching my Rahu Ketu workshop. I'm going to be sharing number of recordings with you.